Hey everybody, lovely to be with you all today in the salon. This is my first time being in a salon that wasn't like washing hair, doing nails, like, all right, a poetry salon. So I'm going to tell you guys just a little bit about myself, and I hope I don't mess up speakers if I walk around a little bit. But I am Jennifer Esteen. I'm a registered nurse, and I work here in the city of San Francisco for the Department of Public Health at San Francisco General Hospital. And actually, the first 5 years of my career, I worked in the psychiatric emergency room, which is part of why I was motivated to step up and run. Because every single day, it was my job to literally take people out of handcuffs. 90% of people coming into our psychiatric emergency room are coming because they've called 911, they've been placed on an involuntary psych hold of 5150, and police are bringing them into the hospital to access behavioral health care. And you know, as a young nurse, when I started doing this work about 13 years ago, I didn't really understand why people were accessing our behavioral health system, our medical care, with the police. And I think we see more and more of it these days with people on the streets, living in encampments, and you know, sometimes looking like they're in need of psychiatric care. But 13 years ago, it wasn't as bad as it is now. And it wasn't as in your face. So this was my first experience touching people in crisis. And you know, even today, it still baffles me. Why are people in crisis on the street and in need of care? And the result, or the way that they access, is calling 911. I just don't think it makes sense. So, you know, 5 years of working in the crisis system, I decided I needed to do something a little different. I moved into the community, and it was there that the activist inside of me was born. So there's a boarding care home. A boarding care home is basically permanent housing for folks who need a little support. And my clients, who I had met initially in the psychiatric emergency room, moved into the boarding care home, some of them, those who were the luckiest, and they had permanent housing. Well, one day a client came to me and told me they were losing their housing because they were being evicted. Sometimes that happens, but in this instance it was strange because everybody was being evicted. The entire program was going to close. And it turns out it was a policy decision. You see, the city of San Francisco has an issue. Tell me if you guys have heard of it. It's called homelessness. It's a pretty big issue. And there was a decision to use this license on this particular facility, fast track it, and open a homeless shelter. Now that sounds great because we need more homeless shelters, but what wasn't so great is, why are we closing one resource to open another, and why are we closing permanent housing to open temporary shelters? Like, what are we going to do? Put these clients into the same beds but make them like go to the street? It didn't make sense to me. And what also didn't make sense is that my clients were informing me. You see, I worked in the placement team, and every client who was placed came through us. We authorized care, whether they were coming from Napa State Hospital, the jail, the inpatient psych unit, a 24-hour treatment. We authorized care, so why was my client informing me? It just didn't add up. I started asking more questions, and the more questions I asked, the fewer answers I got. So it's like, okay, this is not really feeling good. So I gathered my clients, my colleagues, and we went to the Health Commission. Right here in the city of San Francisco, we went to the Health Commission and we wanted to ask them questions. And they told us to have a seat, wait till the end of the meeting, we'll do public comment. If you guys have ever gone to a meeting for public comment, you know that you get to speak but get no response back. And for me, that wasn't going to work. My clients were being evicted. The clock was ticking, and so we shut the meeting down. We were like, if you guys won't talk to us, you don't get to talk to anybody. And we acted up. And that made some impression. But it didn't make a result. So the next month, we went back and did the same thing. We said, hey guys, we want to talk to you. We expected to be agendized. I mean, by this point, you shut down a meeting like the Health Commission in San Francisco, the Chronicle picks it up. The Examiner picks it up. Mission Hills, 48 Hills picks it up. People start talking about it, and there was a lot of attention. So we were like, yes, we'll be on the agenda. Nope, we weren't on the agenda. We shut the meeting down again. Now this is at 5 o'clock. The next day I went to work, and my computer was missing from my desk. And I was like, oh snap. I did something really, really wrong because now they're investigating me. I can't even do my job. What's going on? And month number 3 passed. I got my computer back, didn't get fired, thank God. We didn't have to shut down that meeting. We had generated so much attention. My whistleblowing paid off because the Board of Supervisors passed 3 pieces of legislation. They protected my client's housing, kept it fully funded, fully staffed, and said that this will never happen again. And that homeless shelter, it got opened, but it got opened somewhere else. And no one got displaced. And it was a huge victory. And it really was like mind-blowing. People started to say, Jennifer, you need to run for office. And I was like, what? But I'm a nurse, I'm an advocate. I'm supposed to do this. None of this is special, but people said it was special. To get 3 pieces of legislation passed in San Francisco in 3 months is impressive. I don't know about you guys, but legislation usually goes kind of slow. I didn't know then, but I know now. Fast forward, have you guys heard of Mental Health SF? Mental Health SF is being implemented now after a 2-year delay. Well, I was brought onto a steering committee to help write it. Matt Haney, who is now our assemblyman here, he just won his election, for those of you who might be Haney fans, those of you who might be Campos fans, we won't go there. But I helped Matt Haney and Hillary Ronan write Mental Health SF. And that steering committee gave an incredible education because it taught me about what legislation is and how we could expand behavioral health care in San Francisco. And of course, if you expand care, you have to pay for it. So we did something that was so remarkable. It was the first time in the country it ever happened. We created a tax to cover this mental health expansion by taxing excessive CEO income. I don't know if you guys remember that, right? And it went on the ballot, and the voters of San Francisco said yes. They said yes to taxing the rich, and yes to using it to expand behavioral health care. And that was the moment I was like, whoa, people are right, I should run for office, because this is amazing. It was really, really cool. And so, you know, that wasn't the moment I decided to run for Assembly, but I am now serving on our Alameda Health System Board of Trustees because I actually live in the East Bay. I live in an unincorporated community, and I serve on our Eden Area Municipal Advisory Council. And in those roles, serving in governance, chairing the finance committee of the health system, which is actually a $1 billion budget, because in Alameda County, we have 4 public hospitals. Our level 1 trauma center, our psych hospital, 2 community hospitals, 318 SNF beds, and it's a $1 billion budget. And it is amazing the work that we do. Thousands of healthcare workers, and we serve tens of thousands of patients on a regular basis. And COVID was the reason that I decided to just go from doing all these things to deciding to run, and I'll tell you why. It is about 20,000 people. And when COVID hit, we had the most death and the most infection amongst people of color out of any other area in the district. And that was heartbreaking for me because I knew my neighbors and their friends and family were dying and getting sick. And the thing about it, in all of Alameda County, there were only 2 other areas that had more death and more infection in communities of color. It was Fruitvale and Deep East Oakland. And the thing that makes our communities the same is that we're browner, we're blacker, we're poorer, and we have less access to representation. And knowing all of that, as a public health nurse, a psych nurse, as a person who is sitting on the governance body for our health system, knowing that policy is what leads to disparate health outcomes, because years and years of policy have forced us to live closer to the freeway, forced us to have less access to preventative health care, forced us to have, less access to public education that is funded so that we can have good jobs that, move us into green space and all these things. I decided this is what I need to do. I need to be in the place where policy is made, where budgets are written, because budgets are statements of our priorities. And it is our state legislature where we have no nurse currently serving, even though we're in the 3rd year of a pandemic. So I want to make sure that we have adequate representation. And in July last year, I threw my hat in the ring to challenge our 10-year incumbent, which is political suicide, guys. Challenging an incumbent is a hard thing to do. But after just 5 months in December, he announced his retirement. Right? I beat him. I was like, whoa, first victory, we won. But it's not over yet. The race continues, and actually, in our district, the primary is happening on June 7th. And people will get their ballots, because now of COVID, we have vote by mail a month early. People get their ballots in 2 short weeks. So this is the time where we absolutely need everyone's help to make sure we can reach voters by knocking on their doors, by calling them, by doing all the things campaigns do. And so I'm here tonight as a guest of Kevin and Paolo to share my story with you, because frankly, I need your help. I need your help, and I would love to also have your generosity, your donation. There are some QR codes that we have that we're going to pass around, because campaigns are run by 2 things: by people and by access to voters. And the way we access voters here in America with our capitalist system, we access voters by sending mail, which costs money, you have to print things, by putting door hangers on people's doorknobs, which costs money because you have to print it, and by putting people to work, volunteers. Some people have more time than money, and some people have more money than time. So just to put it out there, I would love to have your support. It is not easy running a campaign. I'm running as a corporate-free grassroots candidate, and that is also something that is very difficult to do. The district is 500,000 people, and if you guys followed what happened with Haney and with Campos, we know that real estate developers put $3 million on the line to help buy an election. Now, whatever side of the spectrum you fall on, I fall on the side of the spectrum where I believe voters are the ones who get to choose the outcome. And so my corporate-free campaign has been endorsed by the California Democratic Party Renters Council, because I represent the interest of those of us who need renter protection, who need affordable housing. I'm a nurse and I want to expand our healthcare services. I'm a psych nurse. I want to get people off the street and into treatment. And I'm an abolitionist. I don't want to see more investment in police, because I know that public safety does not increase, even though those police budgets have increased year over year over year. And the first voter guide, and I'm going to wrap now, and I'm going to give you guys a limerick after this so we can jazz it up a little. The first voter guide of the season was just released on Tuesday. And they said 3 things about me. They said, 1, nobody expected that incumbent to retire. I'm like, yeah, I expected it. They said, I was endorsed by Alicia Garza of Black Lives Matter. And they called me anti-establishment. And I have never been so proud. Because they've been listening. Because in order for us to win, I'm wearing this shirt tonight. Lorde, it says Lorde University. Audre Lorde University. Audre Lorde was a woman who was unabashedly black, lesbian, and proud. And she said, we don't get to destroy the master's house using the master's tools. And the thing about somebody running for office that says we don't destroy the master's house using the master's tools is that it almost seems like a contradiction. And sometimes I'll admit it is a contradiction. But in order for us to make change, in order for us to be anti-establishment and blow things up, sometimes we have to get inside. And we have to be outside, because that's what organizing is, right? Inside-outside strategy. So as an organizer, I recognize that in order to blow stuff up in California and in America, we have to be everywhere. So I invite you to join Team Esteen, because we need to be everywhere, in San Francisco, in the East Bay, and all over the place. And now I'm going to share my limerick. I heard there was a math theme tonight, is that right? Yeah. All right. So, we're at this event to talk about 2 + 2. And I am so glad to see all of you. We hear all of maths, and taking long baths. So now support my campaign and say, woo! Alright, and just to round it out, I'll read an Audre Lorde poem, and this one is also brief. It's called The Black Unicorn. The black unicorn is greedy. The black unicorn is impatient. The black unicorn was mistaken for a shadow or symbol and taken through a cold country where mist painted mockeries of my fury. It is not on her lap where the horn rests, but deep in her moon pit growing. The black unicorn is restless. The black unicorn is unrelenting. The black unicorn is not free. Thank you.